A new report out says China has outspent the U.S. on clean energy for the first time. Could a dispute over carbon pricing stall the Senate climate bill? Several senators are pushing their cap and dividend plan. And DOE's Blue Ribbon panel on nuclear waste meets for the first time today amid news. The last administration signed 11th-hour contracts, making the situation worse.
From the Energy News Center in Washington, D.C., this is the Energy Report with Susan McGinnis.
Good morning, I'm Susan McGinnis. Thanks for joining us for the Energy Report on this 25th day of March 2010. China now leads the world in spending on solar and wind. This is according to a new study from the Pew Charitable Trusts. The study looked at spending among 20 countries. For the first time, China spent more than the United States. Chinese private investment last year was almost $35 billion, nearly double the close to $19 billion from the U.S. China's spending rose 148% over the last 4 years, took the country to #1 in solar panel and wind turbine manufacturing. China is trying to meet soaring demand as its population moves to cities. The government has set a goal of 15% renewables by 2020. 3/4 of its electricity now comes from coal. The Pew report says the U.S. could still lead in clean energy thanks to its entrepreneurial tradition and innovation, but that would require a change in U.S. policies to encourage investment in those technologies. A dispute over how to price carbon could scuttle a Senate climate bill. The authors of a compromise plan to limit carbon emissions say a cap-and-trade system for the energy sector is the best approach. But Democrat Maria Cantwell of Washington and Republican Susan Collins of Maine are both pushing a cap and dividend plan that would rebate carbon charges to consumers instead of allowing companies to trade carbon credits on an open market. Climate bill co-author Lindsey Graham calls that a redistribution of wealth. But some lawmakers still on the fence say they are skittish about a plan that doesn't include revenue sharing with consumers. Senators are trying to find a way to get a filibuster-proof majority for the climate bill. The Blue Ribbon panel on nuclear waste has its first meeting in Washington today amid word the problem is bigger than they thought. After the November election, the lame duck Bush DOE signed contracts to take even more spent fuel. The contracts were quietly signed with companies considering 21 new nuclear plants, even though DOE is already in default on earlier contracts because it has no place to put the fuel. Utilities have sued since they must continue managing fuel. DOE has paid more than $500 million in damages. It's now appealing $750 million more. The Blue Ribbon panel is exploring options for managing radioactive wastes in light of the Obama administration's decision to shut down the Yucca Mountain disposal site where all that fuel was supposed to go. The DOE contracts do ensure that state regulators can't question costs of spent fuel management at new plants. A House subcommittee has approved a bill giving the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission the authority to protect the nation's electric grid from cyber attacks. The panel's decision comes one day after FERC Chairman John Wellinghoff warned lawmakers cyber attacks are an extremely serious threat. High-level administration officials have said Chinese and Russian cyber spies have already hacked into the U.S. electric grid, left behind programs that have disrupted the grid. The House Energy and Commerce Committee must vote on the bill before it moves to the House floor. The government's mortgage finance agencies are pushing back against an energy efficiency loan program. The White House-backed PACE program allows homeowners to get that money through their local governments and pay it back along with their property taxes. It's already been approved in 16 states, but if the homeowner defaults, those loans will be paid back first before the mortgage lender gets any money. The Wall Street Journal says that is not sitting well with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, who have struggled in a foreclosure-racked housing market. Other critics say lenders could raise rates in response and that homeowners should not be taking on more debt while home values are falling. A lease is a lease no matter what someone else negotiates later. This is the ruling from Pennsylvania's highest court in a dispute between some landowners and energy companies looking to drill for natural gas in the Marcellus shale. Landowners who negotiated leases in the early days of the Marcellus land rush were seeking to invalidate them after their neighbors ended up signing more lucrative deals months or years later. The plaintiffs argued producers should not be allowed to subtract drilling costs from the royalty payments, but the justices ruled the state law guaranteeing minimum royalties doesn't specify how the payments should be calculated. The decision is expected to settle dozens of other cases pending in Pennsylvania's state and federal courts. For the first time in nearly 20 years, the U.S. has increased domestic crude oil production. The Energy Information Administration credits this increase to more drilling in the Gulf of Mexico and in North Dakota. The EIA says domestic oil production in 2009 was about 5.32 million barrels a day, up from 4.95 in 2008. It was the highest level of domestic oil production since 2004, when the daily average was 5.42 million barrels. EIA says production will continue growing for at least the next couple of years, with a pace of 3.9% this year. GE says it's spending more than $450 million to expand offshore wind manufacturing in Europe. Plans include building a new turbine manufacturing plant in the UK, expanding an existing onshore turbine facility in Germany, and expanding its offshore wind technology research and development sites in Sweden. GE International President Fernando Bacalifalco says the investments will position the company to help develop Europe's vast, untapped offshore wind resources, while also creating jobs for both GE and its suppliers. A new report out today finds the rate of deforestation decreasing globally for the first time. The UN says planting programs are cutting deforestation rates in Brazil and Indonesia, which had the highest loss of forests in the 1990s. It says the US, China, India, and Vietnam are also seeing a decline thanks to planting programs. Still, the report says forests are disappearing in parts of South America and Africa, with trees cut down to use the land for farming. Scientists say forests' ability to store carbon can help mitigate the effects of climate change. Here's a look at goings-on around the Beltway today in energy. 9 a.m. Areva will offer a virtual tour of its nuclear processing plant in France. That's at the National Press Club. Clean Skies News will have it for you. 9:15, labor unions, environmental groups, renewable energy developers, and utilities discuss electric transmission's role in the development of renewable energy and their push for changes to the transmission title of the current energy bill. That's at the National Press Club. And at 11, the Department of Energy's Blue Ribbon Panel has that meeting on nuclear waste disposal. First meeting yet. Secretary Chu will address the gathering at the Willard Hotel. Clean Skies News will be there. That is the Energy Report. Thanks for joining us here in the Energy News Center. For any suggestions or comments about our programming on Clean Skies News, you can email us at contact@cleanskies.com, and you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook. I'm Susan McGinnis. This is Clean Skies News.